The invitation arrived in my mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon in late April. Not hand-delivered like some dramatic movie scene. Just there, sitting between utility bill and a grocery store circular. Cream-colored envelope. Expensive cardstock. The kind that whispers old money even when it's only a generation deep. I stood in the lobby of my apartment building, the nice one in Buckhead with the doorman and the actual hardwood floors, holding that envelope while my twins kicked against my ribcage like they could sense my heart rate spiking. 8 months pregnant, due in 6 weeks. My belly so large I couldn't see my feet anymore. My back aching in that constant, dull way that third trimester pregnancy gives you. My fingers swollen enough that I'd had to move my engagement ring to a chain around my neck. And there, in elegant calligraphy that probably cost someone their afternoon, were the words, "Mr. Dylan James Hartwell requests the honor of your presence at his marriage to Miss Caroline Elizabeth Prescott. The St. Regis, Atlanta, June 15th, 7 p.m., black tie." There was a note on the back. Handwritten. Dylan's slanted scrawl that I used to find on grocery lists and anniversary cards. Thought you might want to see how things turned out. No hard feelings. Wishing you well. D. No hard feelings. Like he'd accidentally bumped into me at Whole Foods. Like he hadn't destroyed me in a lawyer's office 18 months ago with words that still woke me up at 3 a.m. sometimes. You're barren. Those 2 words, said so casually, so clinically, like he was diagnosing a broken appliance. You're barren, Amara. 5 years we've tried. 5 years of nothing. My family deserves grandchildren. I deserve children, and you can't give me that. My name is Amara Bennett. I'm 33 years old. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and this is the story of how my ex-husband invited me to his wedding to prove he'd moved on to someone better, someone fertile, and how I walked through those doors 8 months pregnant with twins. But before I tell you about the wedding, before I tell you about the look on Dylan's face when he saw me, I need to tell you how I got here. Because this story isn't about revenge. It's about the year and a half between being told you're broken and discovering you never were. But before we dive into that journey, you need to subscribe to Heartstring Stories with Zach right now. Because every week, I bring you stories about people who were told they weren't enough, and who proved that the person doing the judging was the one who was lacking. Stories about women who rebuilt themselves, men who learned humility the hard way, and the messy, complicated truth that sometimes the worst thing that ever happened to you becomes the best thing that ever happened for you. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss a story, and drop a comment telling me, have you ever been blamed for something that wasn't your fault? How did you prove them wrong? Let me know where you're watching from. Now, let me take you back 18 months. To the lawyer's office where my marriage ended and my shame began. The conference room smelled like expensive leather and broken promises. Dylan sat across from me at a table that could seat 12, his lawyer beside him. A woman in a suit that cost more than my car payment, with a briefcase that looked like it had never touched the ground. My lawyer was good, but overworked, juggling too many cases, checking his phone too often. I'd hired him because he was affordable. Dylan's lawyer had been hired because she won. It was a Thursday afternoon in November. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Atlanta sprawled beneath us, all steel and glass and ambition. We were on the 42nd floor of a building Dylan's firm had financed. Everything about this moment was designed to remind me of the power imbalance. Dylan in his custom suit, me in a blouse from Target. Dylan with his corner office confidence. Me with my hands shaking in my lap. Let's begin, Dylan's lawyer said, her voice brisk and professional. My client is seeking a no-fault dissolution of marriage. The division of assets is straightforward. Mr. Hartwell will retain the primary residence in Ansley Park, the vacation property in Highlands, and his investment portfolio. Mrs. Hartwell will retain her vehicle and personal effects. I stare at the papers in front of me. 7 years of marriage reduced to bullet points. The marital home was purchased with funds from Mr. Hartwell's inheritance, the lawyer continued. Mrs. Hartwell's name was added to the deed as a courtesy, but given that she made no financial contribution. I worked 2 jobs while he got his MBA, I heard myself say. My voice sounded small in that enormous room. Dylan's lawyer didn't even look up. Employment income that was used for household expenses. not capital investment. The distinction matters legally. My lawyer cleared his throat. My client is entitled to. Your client, Dylan's lawyer interrupted, sliding a document across the table, will receive a settlement of $75,000. Given the brevity of the marriage and the absence of children, this is more than generous. Absence of children. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. I looked at Dylan, really looked at him. His jaw was tight. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. This man I'd loved since I was 26. This man I'd supported through business school and career changes and the death of his father. This man who'd promised me forever. Dylan, I said quietly, can we talk? Just us. His lawyer started to object, but Dylan held up a hand. 5 minutes, he said. The lawyers left. The door closed. And suddenly it was just the two of us in that sterile conference room. 7 years of marriage sitting between us like a third person. Why are you doing this? I asked. Amara. He said my name like it exhausted him. We both know this hasn't been working. We haven't been trying. You've been working 80-hour weeks. You've been what? Waiting tables? Taking art classes? Playing and having a career while I built an actual future. The cruelty in his voice was new. Or maybe it wasn't new. Maybe I'd just been choosing not to hear it. I supported you, I said, when you wanted to switch firms, when you wanted to start your own fund. I believed in you and I'm grateful. He cut me off. But gratitude doesn't make a marriage, Amara, and it doesn't give me what I need, which is children. He said it flatly. A family. A wife who can actually fulfill the basic biological function of, don't. My voice cracked. Don't do that. It's been 5 years. 5 years of trying. Of disappointment every month. Of watching my friends have kids while we have nothing. We could see a specialist. Both of us. Get tested. Find out. I don't need to get tested. Dylan's face hardened. My family is fertile. 4 generations of Hartwells having multiple children. The problem isn't me, Amara. It's you. There it was. The thing you've been thinking for years, finally said out loud. You're barren, he continued, his voice almost gentle now, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. I don't blame you. It's not your fault. But I can't spend the rest of my life pretending it doesn't matter. I want children. You can't give me that. So we need to end this. I felt something inside me crack. Not break. Breaking would come later. This was just the first fissure. The moment when the foundations start to shift and you realize the whole structure is about to collapse. You never loved me, I said quietly. That's not fair. You loved the idea of me. The girl from the nice family who went to Spelman, who looked good at your business dinners, who didn't embarrass you in front of your colleagues. But you never actually loved me. Amara. Because if you loved me, you'd fight for this. You want to know why we can't conceive. You consider that maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't me. Dylan stood. I'm marrying Caroline in June. She's from a good family. Her mother had 4 children. Her grandmother had 6. She understands what it means to be a Hartwell wife. Caroline. I knew her vaguely. Blonde. Junior league. The kind of woman who wore pearls to brunch and never had a hair out of place. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been seeing her? Dylan had the grace to look uncomfortable. That's not relevant. How long, Dylan? 8 months. 8 months. While I was still sleeping beside him every night. Still cooking dinner. Still believing we were just going through a rough patch. Get out, I whispered. Amara. Get out. Sign your papers. Take your house and your inheritance and your fertile girlfriend. Just get out. He left. I sat in that conference room alone for 20 minutes, staring at Atlanta through those floor-to-ceiling windows. All those buildings. All those lives. All those people who weren't currently being told their body was defective. My lawyer came back. Asked if I was okay. Asked if I wanted to review the settlement. I signed everything without reading it. Because what was the point? Dylan had already taken everything that mattered. I walked out of that building into the November afternoon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful and completely indifferent to my pain. I got in my car, the 10-year-old Honda Civic that was apparently the only thing I contributed to our marriage worth keeping, and drove to the only place I knew would understand. Tessa's apartment. Tessa took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without a word. Tessa Williams had been my best friend since sophomore year at Spelman. We'd pledged the same sorority, survived the same terrible boyfriends, celebrated each other's victories, and mourned each other's losses. She was a corporate lawyer at King and Spalding, made good money, lived in a midtown high-rise with a view of Piedmont Park. She was also the only person who'd ever told me Dylan was wrong for me. "He's too focused on what you represent instead of who you are," she'd said the week before my wedding. "But you love him, so I'll support you." Now she sat me down on her couch, poured 2 massive glasses of wine, and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. The lawyer's office, the settlement, the casual cruelty of being told you're defective, the 8 months he'd been cheating. He said, "I'm Barren." I finished, my voice hollow. Like I'm a field that won't produce crops. Like my only value is my uterus, and since that's broken, I'm disposable. That son of a Tessa's jaw was tight. "Amara, you know that's not true." "Do I?" "We tried for 5 years. Tessa, nothing. Not even a late period. Not even a scare. Just nothing, month after month." "Did Dylan ever get tested?" The question hung in the air. "No," I said slowly. He refused. Said his family was fertile. Said it was insulting to even suggest. Of course he did. Tessa's laugh was bitter. "Because Dylan Hartwell is perfect, and if something's wrong, it must be your fault." She grabbed her phone, started typing. "What are you doing?" "Texting my cousin Maya. She's an OBGYN at Emory. Best fertility specialist in the Southeast. You're getting tested. Tessa, no arguments. We're finding out the truth. Because I guarantee you Dylan never wanted the truth. He wanted someone to blame." 3 days later, I sat in Dr. Maya Okonkwo's office at Emory. She was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, natural hair and twists. A warm smile that made the clinical setting feel less terrifying. "Tessa told me your situation," she said gently. "I'm sorry you're going through this. I just need to know," I said, if the problem is really me. Let's find out." The testing took 2 weeks. Blood work, ultrasounds, hormone panels. Things I should have done years ago, but Dylan had always dismissed as unnecessary. When Dr. Okonkwo called me back to her office, I was shaking. "Ms. Bennett," she said, pulling up images on her computer. "I have your results." I braced myself for confirmation, for the medical validation of Dylan's diagnosis. "Your fertility is excellent." I blinked. "What? Excellent. Your hormone levels are perfect. Your ovarian reserve is strong. Your fallopian tubes are clear. Your uterine lining is healthy. There is absolutely no medical reason you cannot conceive and carry a pregnancy to term." The room tilted. "But 5 years. We tried for 5 years. Dr. Okonkwo's expression was careful. "Was your husband ever evaluated?" "No." He said his family. "Family history is not a diagnostic tool." Her voice was firm but kind. "Male factor infertility accounts for 40 to 50% of cases. Without testing both partners, there's no way to determine the cause. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, the problem is not you." I started crying right there in her office. Not sad tears, angry tears, relieved tears. 5 years of internalized shame pouring out all at once. "It's not me," I whispered. "It's not you," Dr. Okonkwo confirmed. "It was never you." I left Emory in a daze. Drove to Tessa's office. She took one look at my face and cleared her schedule. We went to a wine bar in Virginia Highland. Sat outside in the December cold because I needed air. "He blamed me for his inadequacy," I said, staring at my glass. "For 5 years, he let me believe I was broken. Let me apologize every month. Let me feel like I was failing him. Because he's a coward," Tessa said. "And cowards need someone to blame for their own shortcomings. I wasted 7 years." "No." Tessa grabbed my hand. "You learned who he really was. Better now than 20 years from now. Better before you actually had kids with him." She was right. But it didn't stop the anger, the grief, the sense of time stolen. "What do I do now?" I asked. "You rebuild." Tessa's smile was fierce. "You remember who you were before Dylan convinced you that your only value was your reproductive system. You go back to your art, your photography, the things you loved before you made yourself smaller, to fit into his life. I don't even know who that person is anymore. Then you find out. And Amara, she squeezed my hand. When you do, she's going to be magnificent. 6 months after the divorce, I barely recognized my own life. I'd moved out of the apartment I'd shared with Dylan, the one-bedroom in Brookhaven that had been temporary for 4 years, and found a studio in Inman Park. Small, affordable, with huge windows that caught the morning light. I'd quit my job waiting tables at a restaurant in Buckhead, where Dylan's colleagues sometimes ate, and I'd see their pitying looks. Got a job at a gallery in Castleberry Hill. It didn't pay much, but it fed something in me that had been starving. I'd started taking my photography seriously again. Not as a hobby, as a practice. Every morning before work, I walked through my neighborhood with my camera. Captured the way light hit brick walls. The faces of people waiting for the bus. The small moments that make up a life. It was during one of these walks that I met him. I was photographing the old Krog Street tunnel, the graffiti-covered railway underpass that had become an Instagram darling but still held genuine beauty if you looked past the poses. It was early, maybe 6:30 a.m., the city just waking up. I was focused on a particular tag, layers of paint creating an unintentional abstract piece, when someone spoke behind me. "The morning light here is perfect, isn't it?" I turned. The man standing there was tall, early 40s, maybe, dark hair going silver at the temples, wearing running clothes, but not the expensive athleisure that screamed, "I have a Peloton." Just regular shorts and a faded t-shirt from what looked like a medical conference. His face was kind. That was my first thought. Not handsome, though he was, but kind. The kind of face that makes you feel safe without knowing why. "It is," I agreed. "Most people come here at noon when the light is harsh. They miss this." "You're a photographer?" "Trying to be. May I?" He gestured to my camera screen. I showed him the shots I'd taken. He studied them quietly, really looked. Not the performative appreciation people usually give. Genuine attention. "You see layers," he said finally. "Most people just see the surface. But you see what's underneath. That's rare." "Thank you. I'm Sebastian." He offered his hand. "Sebastian Cole. Amara. Amara Bennett." His handshake was warm, firm but not aggressive. The handshake of someone comfortable in their own skin. "Do you run here often?" I asked. "Most mornings. I live over in Old Fourth Ward." "You?" "Inman Park. I walk this route before work." "Where do you work?" "Gallery in Castleberry Hill." "You?" "I'm a doctor. Fertility specialist at Northside." The irony hit me like a truck. Of course. Of course, the first man I'd had a real conversation with since Dylan would be a fertility specialist. That must be rewarding work, I managed. It is, and heartbreaking sometimes. A lot of my patients come in carrying shame that isn't theirs. Blame that was put on them by partners or family or society. His eyes were steady on mine. I spent a lot of time telling people they're not broken, that what they were told about themselves isn't true. I felt something in my chest tighten. "That's important work," I said quietly. "What you do is important too. Art isn't frivolous. It's how we process being human." We stood there in the morning light, the tunnel behind us covered in layers of beautiful chaos. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. "Scene, I should let you finish your run," I said, "and I should let you work." He smiled. "But if you're here tomorrow morning, I'd love to see what you capture next. I'm here every morning." "Then I'll see you tomorrow, Amara." He ran off. I watched him go, this stranger who'd said my name like it mattered. Then I turned back to my camera and discovered my hand was shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Possibility. Sebastian and I fell into a rhythm. Every morning at 6:30, we'd meet at Krog Street Tunnel. He'd run. I'd photograph. And then we'd talk. About everything and nothing. About his work helping couples conceive. About my photography. About books and music and the small observations that make up a life. He never asked about my past. Never pressed for personal information. Just showed up, present and curious, and genuinely interested in who I was, not who I'd been. After 2 weeks, he asked if I wanted to get coffee after our morning routine. After 3 weeks, coffee became breakfast. After a month, he asked me to dinner. An actual date, he clarified. Not a friendly breakfast. A date where I pick you up and take you somewhere nice and hope you say yes to a second one. I laughed. Are you always this direct? I'm 42 years old. I don't have time for games. I like you, Amara. A lot. And I'd like to take you on a proper date. We went to a restaurant in Ponce Highland. Small. Intimate. The kind of place where the chef knows the farmers who grow the vegetables. Over dinner, I told him about Dylan. About the divorce. About being called Barren and discovering I wasn't. May I ask you something? Sebastian said when I finished. Of course. Did he ever get tested? No. Sebastian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I see this often in my practice. Men who refuse testing because acknowledging potential infertility threatens their identity. It's ego masquerading as certainty. He said his family was fertile. Family history means nothing without data. I've had patients from families with 10 kids who struggled with severe male factor infertility. And I've had only children from small families who conceived on the first try. He paused. Your ex-husband didn't want answers. He wanted someone to blame. That's what my best friend said. Your best friend is right. Sebastian reached across the table, his hand covering mine. You spent 5 years believing a lie, Amara. I'm sorry he did that to you. I felt tears burning. I should be over it by now. Should be? Based on what timeline? Whose rules? You're allowed to still be processing. You're allowed to still be angry. Are you always this understanding? I spend my days with people whose bodies didn't cooperate with their dreams. I've learned that healing isn't linear, and that the people who rush you through grief usually do it because your pain makes them uncomfortable. I looked at our hands on the table, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. I'm scared, I admitted. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of letting myself feel something again. That's reasonable, Sebastian said. I'm terrified too. You are. Amara, you're brilliant and wounded and still learning to trust yourself again. Getting involved with you means being patient. Means understanding that some days you'll believe you're not enough. Means proving again and again that I see your value even when you don't. He paused. But I'm willing to do that work. Because you're worth it. And because I think, if you let yourself, you might discover I'm worth it too. I kissed him right there in that restaurant. And he kissed me back like I was precious. Like I was whole. Like being with me was a privilege, not a consolation prize. 3 months into our relationship, Sebastian asked me to move in with him. We were at his house in Old Fourth Ward, a renovated bungalow with a yard and a porch swing and the kind of character that makes a house feel like a home. I know it's fast, he said, but I'm 42. You're 32. We're both old enough to know what we want. And I want you here, not as a guest, as a partner. Sebastian, I love you. He said it simply. I love the way you see the world. I love that you photograph ordinary moments and make them extraordinary. I love that you're rebuilding yourself and letting me watch. I love you, Amara, and I want to build a life with you. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to run toward this good man and this good life. But fear held me back. What if I can't give you children? I whispered. What? You're a fertility specialist. You help people have babies. What if I'm actually the problem? What if Dylan was right and... Stop. Sebastian's voice was firm. First, you were tested. You're not the problem. Second, even if we couldn't conceive naturally, there are options. IVF, donor conception, adoption. But third, and most importantly, he cupped my face in his hands. I'm not with you for your uterus, Amara. I'm with you for you. Your laugh, your art, the way you make me want to be better. If we have children together, that's a gift. If we don't, I still have you. And you're enough. I started crying. You're enough, he repeated. Just as you are. Nothing you need to fix or prove or provide. You're enough. I moved in the next week. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was home. The nausea started in March. At first, I thought it was stress. I was preparing for my first solo exhibition at the gallery, a series of portraits I'd been working on for months. People in their everyday lives. Bus drivers, teachers, the woman who ran the coffee shop on the corner. Ordinary people made extraordinary through attention. The show was scheduled for May. I was running on adrenaline and anxiety and very little sleep. But when I missed my period, and then a second one, a different kind of anxiety set in. I need to take a test, I told Tessa over the phone. Do you want me to come over? Yes. Please. She arrived with 3 different brands of pregnancy tests and a bottle of wine for after, regardless of the result. I peed on all 3 sticks. We waited in my bathroom, well, Sebastian's bathroom, but it was starting to feel like ours, staring at those little windows like they held the secrets of the universe. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. Okay, Tessa said. Look, 2 lines. Both tests. Pregnant. I sat down on the bathroom floor. Just sat. Couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Amara. Tessa's voice was gentle. Are you okay? I'm pregnant, I whispered. You're pregnant. But Dylan said. Dylan was wrong. Tessa sat beside me, pulling me into a hug. He was always wrong. When Sebastian came home that evening, I was sitting on the couch, staring at the positive tests lined up on the coffee table like evidence in a trial. He saw them, stopped dead in the doorway. Amara, I'm pregnant. His face went through a journey. Shock, joy, wonder, something that looked like relief. You're pregnant, he repeated, like testing the words. I'm pregnant. I'm sorry. I know we didn't plan this. I know it's too soon, I know. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees in front of me. His hands found mine. Are you apologizing? His voice was thick with emotion. We've only been together 6 months. This wasn't. Amara, I'm a fertility specialist. Do you know how many couples I work with who spend years trying? How many would give anything for what just happened naturally for us? But I love you. I want to spend my life with you. And if that life includes a baby, his eyes were wet. That's the greatest gift you could ever give me. Really, really. He kissed my hands, my forehead, my lips. We're having a baby. I started crying. He pulled me close. And for the first time since those 2 lines appeared, I let myself feel it. Joy. The ultrasound appointment was 2 weeks later. Sebastian held my hand in the waiting room. I've been nervous all morning, irrational fears spinning through my head. What if the tests were wrong? What if I was the problem after all? What if my body failed this baby the way Dylan said it would fail? Breathe, Sebastian murmured. Whatever we find out, we'll handle it together. Dr. Okonkwo, Maya, who'd become a friend over the past year, called us back personally. Special delivery today, she teased, gesturing to Sebastian. Usually I see you on the other side of these appointments. Today I'm just the nervous dad, Sebastian said. Maya had me lie back on the exam table, applied the gel, pressed the ultrasound wand to my lower abdomen, and there it was on the screen, a tiny blob, with a heartbeat. There's your baby, Maya said, her voice warm, measuring right on track for 8 weeks. Strong heartbeat. I couldn't speak, just stared at that flickering rhythm. Proof that my body worked, that I wasn't broken, that Dylan had been wrong. Wait, Maya said, moving the wand slightly. Oh, my heart stopped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She turned the screen toward us, her smile widening. There are 2 heartbeats. Sebastian leaned forward. 2 twins. Maya pointed at the screen. See? 2 separate sacs. 2 babies. Fraternal twins. I burst into tears. Not sad tears. Overwhelming, disbelieving, vindicated tears. Twins. Dylan had called me Barren, had blamed me for 5 years of failure, had left me for someone he deemed more fertile. And here I was, 8 weeks pregnant with twins. Amara. Sebastian's voice was thick with emotion. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I sobbed. I'm absolutely perfect. He kissed my temple. Yes, you are. The pregnancy progressed beautifully. Morning sickness was brutal the first trimester, but by week 14, it eased. My body changed, curved. My belly grew round and firm, announcing itself to the world. I'd never felt more powerful. Every kick, every flutter, every time I caught my reflection and saw my pregnant body, I felt vindication settle deeper into my bones. This body that Dylan had called defective was growing 2 lives. This body that I've been taught to see as broken was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Sebastian was obsessed. He talked to my belly every night, read pregnancy books, installed car seats at 20 weeks, even though we had months to go, painted the nursery a soft sage green, and assembled 2 cribs with the focused intensity of a man on a mission. You're nesting, I teased, watching him arrange stuffed animals for the 3rd time. I'm preparing, he corrected. There's a difference. You do this for your patients? I help them conceive. I don't usually follow them through pregnancy. He looked at me, his expression soft. But for you, I'd follow you anywhere. My solo exhibition opened in May. I was 5 months pregnant. Visibly, undeniably pregnant. The portraits filled the gallery walls. Faces of people who'd let me see them. Really see them. And beside each portrait was a small plaque with their name and a quote I'd collected during our sessions. Their answers to the question, what do people misunderstand about you? They think I'm just a bus driver. Marcus, 52. They think I'm too young to know what I want. Jasmine, 23. They think I'm broken because I can't have children. Amara, 32. I'd included a self-portrait. The only one in the collection. It was me at 20 weeks pregnant. Hand on my belly, looking directly at the camera. Not smiling. Just present. Real. Whole. The exhibition was a success. Articles in Atlanta Magazine. A piece in the AJC. Galleries from other cities reaching out about touring the show. But the most meaningful moment came from a woman I didn't know. She stood in front of my self-portrait for 10 minutes, crying quietly. I'm sorry, I said, approaching her. Are you okay? She turned. Mid-40s. Beautiful. Her eyes red. I've been trying for 3 years, she whispered. My husband says it's my fault. Says I'm broken. And I started to believe him. She gestured to the portrait. But this, seeing your truth, it made me realize I deserve better than someone who blames me for something neither of us understands. I took her hand. You do deserve better. And you're not broken. How do you know? Because broken things don't create beauty. And you're here, in a gallery, feeling something. That's not broken. That's alive. She hugged me, this stranger, and whispered, thank you, against my shoulder. After she left, Sebastian found me crying in the back office. What happened? I told him about the woman, about her husband, about the way my story had given her permission to question his narrative. You're changing lives, Sebastian said. I just told the truth. That's exactly how you change lives. The invitation arrived in late April when I was 28 weeks pregnant. Sebastian found it in the mail, brought it to me where I was sitting on the couch, feet elevated because my ankles had decided swelling was their new hobby. This came for you, he said carefully. I looked at the envelope, knew immediately. It's from Dylan. Do you want me to throw it away? I thought about it, about how far I'd come, about the life growing inside me, about the man standing in front of me, offering to protect me from even having to see my ex-husband's name. No, I said, I'll open it. The invitation was exactly what I expected. Elegant, expensive, announcing Dylan's marriage to Caroline. The St. Regis. June 15th, black tie. The note on the back. Thought you might want to see how things turned out. No hard feelings. Wishing you well. D. I read it twice, then started laughing. Amara. Sebastian sat beside me, concerned. He invited me to his wedding. I see that. He invited me to prove he moved on, to show me he found someone better, someone fertile. I looked down at my enormous belly. He has no idea about what? That I'm pregnant, with twins, that I'm happy, that everything he said about me was wrong. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. Are you going to go? Do you think I should? I think, he said carefully, that you get to decide. But if you want to close that chapter once and for all, if you want him to see exactly how wrong he was. He smiled. I would be honored to accompany you. You go with me? Amara, I'm with you. All of you, including the parts that need closure on the man who hurt you. I looked at the invitation again, at that casual, dismissive note. No hard feelings, like he hadn't devastated me, like his words hadn't haunted me for 18 months. I want to go, I said, not for revenge, not to hurt him, but for me. I want to walk into that room and show him that his opinion of me was never the truth. Then we'll go. I'm 7 months pregnant, Sebastian. I'm huge. I'll be even bigger by June. You're beautiful. I'll barely fit in a dress. You'll be stunning. Everyone will stare. Let them. His hand found my belly, where the twins were doing their evening gymnastics. Let them see exactly what that idiot threw away. June 15th arrived hot and humid, the way Atlanta summers begin, with a promise of storms that might or might not break. I woke up at 6 in the morning, nervous in a way I hadn't been in months. Sebastian was already awake, watching me. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "Seventh thoughts, maybe." He pulled me close, careful of my belly. "We don't have to go. I know, but you want to." I want to close the door myself instead of letting him slam it. He kissed my forehead. "Then let's go close some doors." Tessa arrived at noon with the dress. Not white, not black. Midnight blue silk that draped my pregnant curves like water. Custom-made by a designer Tessa knew who specialized in maternity evening wear. "Try it on," Tessa commanded. I did. The fabric was cool and soft. The empire waist accommodated my belly without looking like a tent. The neckline was elegant, just enough cleavage to look sophisticated without being inappropriate for a wedding. I looked at myself in the mirror. 7 months pregnant, glowing, undeniably fertile. "Dylan is going to lose his mind," Tessa said with satisfaction. "That's not why I'm going." "I know, but it's a nice bonus." She did my hair, natural curls defined and pinned into an elegant updo. Makeup that enhanced without performing. Simple jewelry, the sapphire earring Sebastian had given me for my birthday. When I was ready, I looked like myself. Not trying to be anyone else. Not performing wealth or status. Just me, pregnant and powerful and whole. Sebastian appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a charcoal suit. He stopped when he saw me. "Amara, too much. You're breathtaking. I'm enormous. You're carrying our children. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Tessa wiped her eyes. "Okay, I'm leaving before I ruin my mascara." "But Amara," she squeezed my hand. "Remember who you are, not who Dylan tried to make you believe you were." "I will." "Good. Now go show that fool what he lost." The drive to the St. Regis was quiet. Sebastian drove. I sat in the passenger seat, one hand on my belly where the twins were active, the other holding Sebastian's hand on the center console. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Terrified." "Of what?" "That I'll see him and feel small again. That all this healing will disappear, and I'll be back in that lawyer's office listening to him call me Barren." Sebastian pulled over. Right there on Peachtree Street. Put the car in park and turned to face me. "Amara Bennett, you're not small. You never were. Dylan tried to make you small because your bigness threatened him. But you survived his cruelty, and you rebuilt yourself, and you fell in love, and you're growing 2 humans inside your body. You're anything but small." "I love you," I whispered. "I love you too. And when we walk into that ballroom, I want you to remember something." "What?" "You didn't come here to prove anything to him. You came here to prove something to yourself. That you survived. That you're whole. That his opinion of you never mattered." I kissed him. "Let's go close this door." The St. Regis Atlanta is the kind of place that whispers luxury. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff who glide rather than walk. The kind of venue Dylan would choose because it says something about him. We arrived at 7:15, 15 minutes after the ceremony was supposed to start. Late by design. The valet took Sebastian's keys. A doorman opened the door, offering his hand to help me out of the car. I stood slowly, my belly leading the way, my hand in Sebastian's. And we walked toward the entrance. The ballroom was on the 2nd floor. We could hear music drifting down the hallway. Classical. Predictable. At the entrance, a young woman in a black dress held a clipboard. "Names, please." "Amara Bennett," I said. +1. She scanned her list. Found my name. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw my belly, but she kept her professional smile. The ceremony just finished. They're in the cocktail hour before dinner. Right through those doors. "Thank you." Sebastian offered me his arm. I took it, and we walked through the doors into Dylan Hartwell's wedding reception. The ballroom was exactly what I expected. White and gold everywhere. Flowers that probably cost more than my car. Round tables with centerpieces that block conversation. A band playing jazz standards. Waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. And 300 guests dressed in expensive fabrics, talking in that particular Atlanta way. Loud enough to be heard, but quiet enough to seem refined. I saw Dylan immediately. He was at the center of a group near the bar. Tall, still handsome in that polished way. His tuxedo perfectly tailored. His smile practiced and easy. Beside him was Caroline. Blonde, thin, elegant in the way that comes from good genetics and better stylists. Her wedding dress was all lace and tulle. Her smile was fixed. They looked like a couple from a bridal magazine. Perfect and completely manufactured. I felt Sebastian's hand tighten on mine. "Ready?" he murmured. "Ready." We started walking into the room. It took maybe 10 seconds for people to notice. The conversations nearest us faltered first. Heads turned, then more heads. The awareness spread like ripples in water. Because here was Amara Bennett, Dylan's ex-wife, the woman he'd called Barren, walking into his wedding reception, 7 months pregnant. The whispers started. "Is that? Oh my God, she's pregnant." We walked slowly, deliberately, through the crowd. I kept my head up, my hand on my belly. Sebastian beside me, steady and solid. Dylan saw me. I watched his face change. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked like a physical blow. His champagne glass actually slipped from his fingers, shattered on the marble floor. The room went silent. Caroline followed his gaze. Saw me. Her expression went from polite confusion to understanding to something harder. We reached their circle. "Hello, Dylan," I said calmly. "Amara." His voice was strangled. "What are you?" "You invited me." I smiled. The invitation said no hard feelings. So here I am. No hard feelings. His eyes were locked on my belly. "You're pregnant." "Yes. 7 months." I let my hand rest on the twins, who chose that moment to kick visible against the fabric of my dress. Twins, actually. Boys. The crowd around us was frozen, listening to every word. "But you," Dylan's face was pale. "You couldn't." "Couldn't what?" I tilted my head. "Conceive? That's what you said, wasn't it? In your lawyer's office. You said I was barren." "Amara." "Turns out you were wrong." My voice was steady. Calm. Not angry. Just factual. I got tested after our divorce. Dr. Maya Okonkwo at Emory. Full fertility workup. Hormone levels perfect. Ovarian reserve excellent. Absolutely no medical reason I couldn't conceive. I paused. Let that sink in. The problem was never me, Dylan. His face was red now. Caroline had stepped back, creating distance. "This is my husband, Sebastian," I continued. "Dr. Sebastian Cole. He's a fertility specialist at Northside. We've been together a year. These are his children." Sebastian offered his hand to Dylan. Dylan stared at it like it was a snake. "Congratulations on your wedding," Sebastian said politely. Then, because he couldn't help himself, "If you and your wife decide to start a family, I'd recommend you both get tested. Saves time and prevents blame being placed on the wrong partner." The implication hung in the air. Someone in the crowd actually gasped. "I should go," I said. "We just wanted to stop by, to show there are no hard feelings." I smiled at Dylan, then at Caroline. "I hope you're very happy together." "Truly." I turned to leave. "Wait." Dylan's voice stopped me. I looked back. "Were you?" His voice cracked. "When we were married. Was it me? Was I the reason we couldn't?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "You refused to get tested, remember? So we'll never know. But what I do know is that blaming me was easier than facing the possibility that you might be the one with limitations." "Amara." I wasted 5 years believing I was broken, Dylan. 5 years carrying shame that was never mine. 5 years making myself smaller, so you could feel bigger. I paused. "But I'm not doing that anymore. I'm whole. I always was. I just had to stop believing your version of me." His eyes were wet. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just peace. "Enjoy your wedding," I said quietly. And Sebastian and I walked out of that ballroom the same way we'd entered. Together. Whole. Free. We made it to the car before I started shaking. Not crying. Just shaking. All the adrenaline and emotion and sheer disbelief pouring out through trembling hands. Sebastian pulled me close as my belly allowed. "Breathe," he murmured. "Just breathe." Did that really just happen? It did. Did you see his face? I saw. He really thought. I started laughing. Couldn't stop. He really thought I was the problem. All this time, he needed you to be the problem. Because if you weren't, he'd have to face his own inadequacy. I looked up at Sebastian. "Thank you for coming with me. Where else would I be? You didn't have to defend me." The comment about testing was absolutely necessary. His smile was sharp. He spent 5 years blaming you without any medical evidence. He deserved to have that pointed out. You're protective of you, always. We sat there for a moment, my hand on my belly, his hand covering mine. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it. Free, I said finally. I feel free. Like I just put down something I've been carrying for 18 months. Good. It wasn't about revenge. I know. It was about closure. About proving to myself that his opinion of me never defined my reality. And did you prove it? I smiled. I think I did. Sebastian kissed my forehead. Let's go home. Home sounds perfect. He started the car. We pulled away from the St. Regis, away from Dylan's wedding, away from the chapter of my life where I believed I was broken, toward home, toward our twins, toward the future we were building. And as we drove through Atlanta, past the buildings and the traffic and all those lives intersecting and diverging, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Dylan Hartwell had called me Barren. But here I was, 7 months pregnant with twins, in love with a good man, building a life that was mine. Not perfect, but whole. And that was more than enough. 3 years later, I stood in our backyard in Druid Hills, watching Sebastian chase our twin boys through the garden. Mason and Marcus were 2.5, wild and beautiful and full of the kind of energy that makes you understand why people say twins are a blessing and a curse. They had Sebastian's dark hair and my complexion, that perfect blend that made strangers stop and comment on how beautiful they were. Mama, Mason ran up, holding a dandelion. For you. Thank you, baby. Me too. Marcus presented his own weed flower. I kissed them both, sent them back to play, and settled my hand on my belly where our daughter was currently using my ribs as a punching bag. 7 months pregnant. Again, not twins this time. Just one perfect girl who was taking after her brothers in the strong kick department. Tessa came through the back door, carrying lemonade. You're glowing, she said, handing me a glass. I'm sweating. Glowing sweat. Very maternal. I laughed. How's the party prep going? Under control. Cake's in the fridge. Decorations are up. Your mother is reorganizing my kitchen as we speak. Should I apologize for that? Please don't. She's better at it than I am. We were celebrating the twins' 3rd birthday. Family and friends filling our home. The kind of chaos that meant love. I'd heard through the Atlanta Gossip Network that Dylan and Caroline were still married. No children. Apparently they'd done IVF twice without success. I felt sympathy for them. Genuine sympathy. Because I knew what it felt like to want children and believe your body was failing you. But I also felt gratitude that it wasn't my story anymore. My story was this: a backyard full of laughter, a husband who still looked at me like I hung the moon, 2 wild boys, and a daughter on the way. My story was a thriving photography career. Exhibitions in galleries across the Southeast, commissions from people who wanted to be seen the way I saw them. My story was friendships that had carried me through darkness and celebrated me in light. My story was whole. Mama, Mason and Marcus ran up again. Daddy says cake now. Cake is in 30 minutes, I corrected. But we want cake now. Sebastian appeared, scooping up both boys. What did I say about patience? That it's hard, Marcus said solemnly. And what else? That good things are worth waiting for, Mason recited. Exactly. Sebastian set them down. Go play. Cake comes after lunch. They ran off, disappointed, but accepting. Sebastian sat beside me, his hand finding my belly automatically. How's our girl? Active. I think she's training for soccer. Takes after her mother. I was never athletic. I meant strong. He kissed my temple. She's going to be fierce like you. And gentle like you. God help us all if she's stubborn like both of us. I laughed, leaning into him. Happy, he asked. Deliriously. No regrets. Not a single one. And it was true. The road here had been hard. Had required leaving behind a life that was killing me slowly. Had demanded I rebuild myself from shame and anger and the ashes of who I'd been told I was. But every hard moment had led here. To this man. These children. This life. Dylan had called me Barren. But sitting in my garden, surrounded by the family I'd built, I'd never felt more abundant. Not because I'd proved him wrong, though I had. but because I'd proved something more important, that my value was never tied to his opinion, that I was whole before I met him, while I was with him, after I left him, and every moment since. That the best revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. It's building a life so beautiful you forget they ever had the power to make you feel small. Mama, both boys ran up again. Can we have cake now? I looked at Sebastian. He shrugged. Okay, I said. Let's have cake. And as we walked into our house, our home, filled with people who loved us, I felt the last piece of the past fall away. Dylan Hartwell was married to someone else, and I was married to myself first, to my worth, to my wholeness. Everything else was just beautiful addition. So that's my story. The story of how I was called Barren and showed up to my ex-husband's wedding 7 months pregnant with twins. But that's not what this story is really about. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving someone wrong. It's not even about the pregnancy. It's about what happens when you stop believing other people's lies about who you are. It's about the journey from shame to wholeness, from broken to realizing you were never broken at all. It's about learning that closure isn't something someone gives you. It's a door you close yourself. And it's about discovering that the person who blamed you for their inadequacy usually did so because facing their own limitations was too painful. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told you're not enough, that you're broken, that something about you is fundamentally wrong, I want you to hear this. Their opinion of you says everything about them and nothing about you. The people who try to break you often reveal their own brokenness. And walking away from someone who made you feel small isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. Dylan told me I was barren for 5 years, but I was abundant all along. I just had to stop believing his version of me and start believing my own. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to Heartstring Stories with Zach for more stories about people who refused to let someone else's limitations define them. Next week, a woman discovers her fiancé has been planning to leave her at the altar as a prank for social media. She doesn't call off the wedding. She shows up with a plan of her own. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to rebuild yourself after someone tried to make you believe you're broken? What did you learn? Thank you for being here. Remember, you're not broken. You're not too much. You're not any of the things someone said when they were trying to make themselves feel bigger. You're whole. You always were. See you next week.